you know. Yeah, you know. Yeah, you know.
Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Here we are once again. I'm Curly. This is D&B Q&A with Curly. Drum and bass questions and answers. We talk to cool people, have conversations, have a good time. I'm super excited because tonight we have Chemynne from Juice Drum and Bass, and really excited to have another woman on the show and to talk to someone who has been, really pushing the scene in their area for a long time, promoting events, the whole banana. So I'm super, super excited for it. I think we're going to have a really, really good time. Thank you, Rude Boy, on the mic. Good to know. React, thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate that. Nice to see everybody here. If you're new, hey, I'm Curly. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you'll give us a few minutes and, stick around, and I hope you love it. If you are returning, thanks so much for that. I, this could not happen without you. If no one listened, there would be literally no point in someone coming on here to talk to me. So, you being here means that I get to do this. So, I just thank you so, so much for that. And you know what, React? I love you guys too. Like, I can't even, I can't even tell you. Um, yeah, just, you know, brightest spot in 2020. Um, yes, longtime listener, first time caller. I should do a call in sometime, like just something crazy. Um, maybe birthday stream. Oh yeah, I should just mention that. Like my birthday, I will not tell you when it is, but it is coming up. I have time. And so if you have ideas for, I want to do something special. So if you have ideas about stuff we should do for the birthday stream, hey, there is a link, or there was a link. That was the wrong command. Um, there is a link to No Use for Anger's 1134 Discord. He has been kind enough to give me a channel for the show. So if you want to talk to me, if you have questions, suggestions, whatever, join up, go to the channel, let's talk. Um, I love that we can communicate outside of that. So oh, Wigs. So thanks for being here. I'm so excited that you're getting to catch another one. That's great. I think it's gotten better since the first one. So, that's cool. I feel more comfortable, and uh I think it's much more relaxed, and everybody seems to have a good time. So yeah, that's dope. Um I'm trying to think like what kind of announcement type situations we should have uh, you know, going on here. Big up to Doms and Darth Liquid, and all you guys for being here. Rude Boy Soldier, who is almost every time the first person who shows up, does my little sound check for me. Just what a supporter. Um, love that. Just absolutely love that. And yeah, uh you guys are fantastic. You're amazing. And I just appreciate every single one of you so much. Um, yeah, life is good, man. Life is hard, but life is still good. Oh, thanks, Proper Pro. More confidence. Excellent. Yeah, the first couple ones are really scary, but yeah, start to relax. I'm sure it's the same thing for every streamer. I'm sure it's the same whether you're DJing or, whatever you're doing. Plus, you get more comfortable with like the equipment and all of that. I feel like I'm getting better at being able to pay attention to the chat and my guests. So, that's super cool. Um, let's see, anything else going on? Subfugitive, I didn't say hello to you. See, that's the other thing about being here early. Is I get to mention you by name later on. I don't really have, I really want to focus on my guest and honor them for their giving me their time. So yeah. Um uh yeah, Wigs, the time difference is brutal across the way. That's why I do my Saturday stream at 7 a.m. I'm telling you, it is a labor of love because for some reason I can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning during the week every day and it is no big deal. But my body on Saturday is like, what the hell are you doing? And does not want to wake up. So it is a labor of love. And I get to, it's a much better time for folks in the UK and Europe. So yeah. Um, Domsy's up late too. So 7:05. Let's go ahead and get started. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. So tonight, my guest is Chemynne. She is the founder of Juice Drum and Bass out of Portland, Oregon. I didn't know anything about drum and bass in Portland, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, before I found Twitch. And wow, it turns out they have an amazing community of drum and bass there and an amazing presence on Twitch. So I'm really excited to talk to her. She's been doing this a long time. I've even learned some little tidbits that I'm really excited to share with you. And I think we're gonna have a great time. So let's go ahead and bring her in. Hey, girl.
Hey, how's it
How are
going?
you?
Oh,
Good.
it's good to be here. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you. Like
Happy
this is
Tuesday.
right. Like Tuesday is a crazy day of the week, but I look forward to it
Yeah,
every week.
for me
It's
too.
Yeah.
It's surreal to be here because usually I have my laptop on the kitchen counter while I'm cooking dinner, and I'm like, oh, I got because it's just been so interesting hearing
Yeah.
your streams and hearing about everybody's lives. So thank you for
It's
having me on the other side.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for coming and being willing to share yourself with us. We get to see, like, obviously we get to learn, I think, a lot about any DJ that's streaming because we get to hear their music selection, and most people either have a mic or they're really active in their chats, and so you do get to get a sense of people and a certain amount of perspective on people, but being able to like really talk,
Yeah.
you can't, you can't replace that. And I was watching back while I was getting ready today, the stream with Special Ed, the Boiler Kitchen,
Mhm.
and one of the things that came up was this idea that, especially here in the US, our story really has not been told about drum and bass
Yeah.
and, what it
It's just
what it
so
was like here.
fragmented.
Yeah, yeah. And also kind of US, like the UK is where it's at.
Yeah.
But we are all like keepers of this oral history, of our scenes, and I love that we get to share that with each other.
Yeah.
It's
Agreed.
fantastic. It's
Agreed.
absolutely fantastic. So, let's just dive in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's so much I want to talk to you about, and I'm trying to think like what the
Uh,
first thing we should talk about is. So, okay, why don't we'll do the standard. How did you
sure.
find drum and bass?
Okay. Okay. Going way back.
Yeah.
Um, how did I find drum and bass? I would say that it was a combination of a couple of different events. I was living in San Francisco at the time that I was first turned on to this style of music, and I was probably listening to more of this like funky, jazzy, down tempo kind of stuff that had some little breaks in it, and I was hearing that on KUSF, so college radio, and they used to do these Friday night sessions. I have mixtape upon mixtape of having recorded these during the sessions because every now and then they would have like a little kind of early D&B tune, little LTJ Bookham,
Mhm.
little Big Bud, and I loved that stuff, and
Mhm.
I have a really strong background in jazz music, so there was always something that kind of resonated in that regard.
Yeah.
Um, and then concurrent with that kind of sound that I was just getting turned on to, which I'm guessing was going to be like around 93, 94, living in the
Nice.
city.
Nice.
Um, there were two things that happened. One, I got a hold of my first D&B track by Pesce, which was Under the Nile. I had it on vinyl, and that really was pivotal for me. And then this was also right around the time when I went back to college for a second degree in
Mhm.
1995, and I had been going down to this gallery and listening to their kind of like housey, deep house, down tempo kind of uh, wind down music after work. And I would go hit that after my last class in school. And there was this like unmarked place across from this gallery. And I never paid any attention to this until one day I heard there was this jungle show. And I had no idea what jungle was. And I had no idea what I was in for. And I stumbled into the show, and it was Chemistry and Storm in visiting and playing, and it was just like a small joint, and it was packed, and it was a fucking frenzy. Like everybody was just packed in and like dancing like crazy, and everybody was sweaty, and it reminded me of like the early like 50s when jazz had to be underground for them to
Mhm.
like get their mad groove on and their like
Mhm.
jam sessions on, and it was all like real hush hush.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing photos and video of those early jazz shows, and this jungle show reminded me a lot of that. And having also kind of come from a background of like ska and reggae, I heard these sounds together, and I was like, I'm done. And that was really like a transformative experience for me. That happened before I saw Bookham, before I saw Big Bud.
Mhm.
So that's sort of how I initially got turned on to the music, I was a full on deep listener for about 10 years before Juice started. I was
Mhm.
like early IRC, early chatter,
Mhm.
early forum watcher. Back then it was
Mhm.
all the forums.
Yep.
Um, so it was, for me, it was just the love of the music that kept me coming back for more.
I am just sitting here absolutely flabbergasted. I mean, you were done for. There is no way you could roll up in that room, chemistry and storm on the decks, and not fall in love. Like, I don't, you did not stand a chance. I
No.
mean,
And it was such a foreign experience. I mean, I had been to other music shows and I have a musical background, but this was like something else. I guess at that point, I wasn't really listening to a lot of DJ music, or I was listening, but I didn't really know what I was listening to.
mhm.
And that sort of sealed things in for me. And I was literally like, wow, I remember just not stopping dancing the whole night. And when it was over, I was just like, again, like a little kid, again.
Yes. Where's the next one? How soon
Yeah.
is it? How fast can I get there? Like,
But
is there
still,
an after party? You
right.
know?
But I mean, I think still at that time, I didn't get to a lot of shows because I was in college full time and I was working full time, and I had an apartment in San Francisco and it was expensive, and there
Yeah.
was not really, you know, it was literally only because this place was across the street of where I was that I accidentally kind of fell into that. But I didn't really have time for drum and bass other than on an occasional, you know,
Mm.
set from college radio.
Yeah. Well, you wandered into the right show, girl. I
It's so
mean,
weird.
like,
Totally
that's
changed my life.
fantastic. Now, yeah, so was that it for you? Like, you were all in at that point for drum and bass for jungle, or, you know, I mean, as far as like listening, obviously, you've already told us that you were super busy, so going out was,
Yeah.
not your priority.
I mean, I don't think I really got into the jungle thing for a little while after that. I don't think I
Mhm.
really fully understood what it was. And I guess though I was always deep into music, I didn't really have
Mhm.
time to pursue music and to like seek out producers or seek out different bands and things. It was kind of like it just happened to be what I could listen to when I was working on my final projects. I could flip on the, college radio and it was there, but I would say that my tastes still kind of lay in like the down tempo, and I listened to a lot of ambient. And as
Yes.
maybe a few people in the chat might have caught, like a month or two ago, I did a random 80s dark sort of alternative mix night. And
Yes.
it was like um, post the passing of Harold Budd, who used to work with Cocteau Twins and
Mhm.
Dead Can Dance and Brian Eno and um, uh, Bill Laswell. And I was listening to this kind of music that was, it was tribal, it was electronic, but it was it was like down tempo with a beat.
Mhm.
It had ethnic influences, Latin influences, and I still listen to a lot of that. I played it in my design studio all the time. And I don't think I really got the jungle thing until maybe about 5 years later,
Okay. So
like
like
early 2000.
2000. Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, tell me about that.
Well, I remember I listened to bass drive a lot. That was kind
Mhm.
of one of my early entry points to more drum and bass more of the time. Um, and I can kind of jump to sort of where I was getting to the end of my rope in San Francisco. It was like 98, 99, 97. It was the .com madness. And I was newly married, and you could not both be making, 75 grand a year and be able to afford a house. It was like, it kind of happened. Drum and bass happened at a time when my whole life took a shift, I suppose.
Mhm.
I remember one of the oil refineries in Richmond, which is like north of San Francisco, blew and like spewed shit all over the city and all over the whole area. And, they got a little like slap on the hand for it. And um, it just felt at the time like a really toxic environment.
Mhm.
And so uh, my husband and I took a gamble on Bend, Oregon. And the tip up to Bend was the guy that tattooed my back was mountain biking up in Bend, Oregon. I was like, where the fuck is Bend, Oregon? Um, so we had come up a few times and uh, mountain biked a few times, and we were like, wow, this is great. Fuck San Francisco. We're out of here. Let's go. Like, and we really had no idea what we were getting into. We left California, like I'd been there most of my life. We,
Mhm.
left the apartment. We left our connections,
Mhm.
and I brought my business, really launched it full on there, which was graphic design, branding, art direction,
Mhm.
on a sustainable tip.
Mhm.
And I pretty much just grew that for the next few years. And I was, you know, I'm a career woman for sure. Like I've pushed my own career really, really hard over many years. It's had to morph in different ways, but that was really my focus when we got to Bend. And uh, I built a studio on my property, and so I've been like working from home for a really long time, but it was in a separate building.
Mhm.
And I got really into blowing out the subs with drum and bass, right before the client would show up, and I'll be like, oh, I'll just put that on in the background, and maybe they'll just catch a little bit of it, because I was starting to get so enthralled with the music. I just didn't understand why nobody had ever heard of drum and bass, especially not much in Oregon.
Yeah.
Um, and at the time, there was only one night in Portland. So Portland is 3.5 hours north of Bend,
Oof.
and over a mountain range. And there was a long running night they ran for 11 years called Crush. And they always did much heavier drum and bass, like many people were doing.
Mhm.
But it was there, and I was aware of them, and I was aware of people periodically coming through, though hardly anyone was coming to Oregon at the time.
Mhm.
Um, and it was, some years had gone by, and I'd go to some shows at a local bar and venue that I really enjoyed. And I kept wondering, well, where's the drum and bass? Like, why isn't this incredible music? Like, I was just like, don't you guys hear this stuff? Like, don't you get it? And I just couldn't
Yeah.
figure out why it wasn't coming.
Yeah.
And I was making good money with my design studio at the time, and um, it was then I started to think about, what would it be like to throw a drum and bass show, and how would I do this? And that will be my segue to
Well,
how that happened.
yeah. So before we move on to that, so no drum and bass around, but like, was there other electronic music,
Yeah.
house, techno, whatever?
Yeah, I have these couple of friends kind of to thank for opening up my musical tastes to like breakbeat, for
Mhm.
instance.
Mhm.
Might have been listening to some of it in the later 80s, but these guys had a restaurant and a small venue, and one of the owners is a fine DJ himself, and they used to always play. They'd have like a house night and a breaks night and like a down tempo night, and it was kind of one of maybe only a couple of places in town that was actually bringing like some proper electronic music through there, as well as some other really cool artists. Like
Mhm.
I met Speech from Arrested Development at their venue. He was doing an unplugged thing, and
Nice.
that also changed my life. So anyway, we're still in touch, and
Nice.
that was that was where I was hearing this music. We would go and we would have dinner there, and they'd just be like putting something on, and I was like, wow, this is really great about that drum and bass. So
So yeah, so you are having your 16th anniversary this year? Is that what you told me?
next
So
month.
yeah, so about 2001 then you're starting to think I want to do something, or shoot, maybe you were thinking about it in 2000 and just, you know, planning your planning your moves. So yeah, tell
I
me
mean,
tell me about that.
I mean, the truth of the matter was I had a fresh degree in branding, design, and marketing. So I well knew how to market a business,
Mhm.
and I couldn't really get anyone to like jump on board with the drum and bass thing. So I just really used my own skill set to make it look really good,
Yeah.
as good as I could do. Um, and I used a lot of coercion. The other owner of the bar, her name's Erica Riley. Um, so she was really open to drum and bass. I had played for her and Chris before, and I was like, give me a night, And this was probably more around 2003,
Okay.
2004.
Now, was
And
this still in Be Specific, you were
in
asking a
Bend,
question. It was in Bend. Okay.
in Bend, yeah. And the name of the club was called The Grove. They are no longer, but the owners of The Grove run Spork Restaurant in Bend now. They're pretty amazing people. Um, so in 2004, I tried to kind of twist the arm of Erica and Chris to let me start a night, even though I had no idea. Like I knew I had some local connections, and obviously from listening to Bass Drive for about 10 years and staying involved on all of the forums, I did know some people in the industry, and I had gotten to be kind of a deep listener. So I was like, okay, well, this is a place to start.
Hmm.
And I think Erica needed to hear more. So, Bass Drive was having this drum and bass barbecue in Chicago later summer of 2004. And so I bought her a ticket to go to Chicago with me to try to convince her that they should give me a night.
Hmm.
Um, and so we went and we had a blast. We went for like 4 days, and we did
Nice.
drum and bass for like 2 of those days. We saw Stunna while we were there. We saw AI while we were there. Kind of planned it around this like I had it in mind to like coerce her, you know. And when we came home, she and Chris talked about it, and they gave me a Saturday night. And
Nice.
it started out as a monthly on a Saturday, and that was in March of 2005, and that's kind of where it started.
So you didn't have, much of any scene at all in Bend.
No,
So,
it was create your own scene or be damned.
right.
And when you're living in a city that has 70,000 people, many of which who moved there from other cities too, kind of
Mhm.
combined with like the local folks, you know, the music just really nothing was going to come there unless you did it yourself. A lot of people started businesses that way there.
Mhm.
Um, so, you know, and I couldn't continue to keep driving over the hill to Portland to catch a show.
Mhm.
And a lot of it was, again, like really heavy, really twangy drum and bass. And I was hearing something else.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I was hearing sounds that had a basis in hip hop and in funk and in soul and in
Yes.
jazz. And I was like, why aren't people playing this stuff? You know, Lensman
Yeah.
was producing back then. Lensman was producing great tunes back then, for instance, Nookie, you know, and
Earl Fabio was doing it on Creative Source in
yeah,
99 and 2000. And man,
exactly.
back then I was still going, why is nobody playing this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that was really, it was the particular sound that I was in, which sure, it back then it was just called liquid, you
Right.
know, but there was so much more to it than that. And uh, long story short, I had the money to throw at it, and it was expensive to fly people into Bend because you had to get them to Portland first, and then they had to take this little rickety plane over the Cascade Range and that dropped down into Bend. So, you know, I had to do a lot of convincing just to get people. And then it was like, well, that's going to cost $200 more on that flight to get them to Bend.
Mhm.
So a lot of it was just, I was lucky to have a professional job that uh, helped me to facilitate knowing how to do that. And just, I had the money, you know, I used
Mhm.
my design money for years and years and years and years just to continue to push the music, whether I made money or not, which was mostly not.
Yeah, I never threw my own events unless a residency counts. But know plenty of people that did, and it is a volatile investment to
Mhm.
say the least.
Yeah.
So, where did you find your DJs then? I mean, I'm assuming you had like locals, but it sounds like they weren't Bend locals.
No, no, not too much. No, everyone pretty much came from somewhere else. You know, early on, there were some people coming in from like Eugene and from Portland. And uh, one of the very first shows I had was, I think it was like maybe my third show. I had the Bachelors of Science out, of course, out of San Francisco. And that was when Lucchino was not a part of the triad. So it was just the two of them, Phil and Chris. And I should have pulled. I have a juice portfolio of posters that I keep that has some of these great guys like way back then when they
You
were
have some.
really just starting out. So it was really just through like a tremendous amount of perseverance and dedication, just hitting people up over and over again, like, hey, this is what I'm doing, you know, hey, we'll, you know, bring you out all expenses paid. And, you know, yeah, I know you don't have any other gigs going on, but never mind that. Just do a one off for us, you know. And um, I mention persistence? Like, just so much persistence, even just to get people from California, just locals.
Mhm.
You know, Stunna from Chicago, was kind of like when I started branching out. Mike Random Movement, who's an old friend of mine, um, he played Juice, and it was the second time he had ever played live. It was the second time he had ever DJ'd live because he was really just more of a producer for many,
Mhm.
many years and never played out.
Mhm.
Um, so it was just kind of getting people regionally like that who I think were also blowing up in the scene and just building. Like I still consider every single show every single contact I do for Juice is building, even
Yeah.
after this long. And you're building a reputation. You're hoping that people remember your city and
Mhm.
hoping that people remember your hospitality.
Mhm.
And that was kind of how it got started. But just
Mhm.
like so much just banging on people's doors.
Yeah. So how did you, I mean, obviously you needed to pull people in from Portland, from Eugene, from, the poor lonely travelers that were God knows where in Oregon and had somehow found drum and bass.
Right.
How did you sort of approach, you know, basically letting your whole area know, hey, we're out here and we're making something happen?
It was pretty tough back then, but we had a lot of different forums. PDXD&B, which is just a Facebook group now, but was one of the original drum and bass forums, literally going like I'm sure about 18 years.
Mhm.
um, Through DOA. Um, you know, it was really through the forums and through Bass Drive that I made a lot of connections because I was an avid chatter and I had the benefit of doing my own graphics. So I could just post graphics up whenever I wanted on
Mhm.
all of the different forums. And that was mostly how I got exposure. And then, we can't ever forget the fact that I've, been dropping flyers and posters, since time began. And I just always have a stack of flyers with me, whatever I was
Mhm.
doing, whatever business I was doing. I was always like, yeah, come check out my drum and bass show. Yeah, it's actually really like really good music, man. Just come fucking check it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So, like,
just that a lot of that.
were you going into, like, Portland or Eugene with your flyers trying to, like, put them in strategic places and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was like mailing little stacks out to people elsewhere. Um, and I kind of neglected to mention that I did a lot of traveling back then, and I still did a lot of traveling between Bend and San Francisco, primarily because if there was like a big LTJ Bookham show or something like that happening, they weren't coming to Bend.
Right.
So, I would just hop in my Audi, bonsai down there for 9 hours because I had a fast car back then and I didn't have kids, and I was just like, I'm going to a show, and I would just fly down there, spend the night with a friend, go to the show, and then drive back up to Oregon the next day. And I would drop flyers while I was down there. I tell people
Yeah.
at the clubs down there, hey, do you want a flight share with me? That was
Mhm.
something where I started to kind of reach into like Crush in Portland, and I would say, hey, I want to get this person out. Do you want a flight share with me? Do you
Mhm.
want to split this?
Mhm.
And so that was kind of like another avenue to just figure out how to tell people what I was doing.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the first 3 years that Juice was going, we broadcast a bass drive. So actually, I live streamed many, many, many years ago, and that was our monthly thing on Bass Drive. Was once a month, and we would stream live from the club, and we had a chat room, and um, that gave us some really good exposure too. Back in the day. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
That's totally fantastic.
yeah,
So I have to ask, someone reminded me of this. I found Dee Marie on Instagram today. Did you ever like get to see any of like the Sister San Francisco shows or Eclectic or, because I mean, there was a lot going on in San
yeah,
Francisco.
eclectic. Yeah, I mean, again, I think the tough part for me was I wasn't really like a club goer. I was a
Mhm.
professional and I
Mhm.
ran my own business, and I didn't have time to do a whole lot. I literally cranked out those posters and those materials I like put things up on forums, and maybe I'd get to a show like once a month. Maybe I wouldn't even get to a show other than the shows that I was putting on.
Mhm.
And that's the product of when you're running your own business. There's just not a whole lot of time left
Mhm.
over in the day. And you know
Yeah, but I mean, you were sure devoting a lot of it to pushing this, sound out, kind of in the wilderness of Bend, Oregon.
yeah,
I'm sitting here thinking, like, you know, for me in Texas, in Houston, I've always said, we really had to fight to build our scene and blah, blah, blah. But I was A, not by myself, and B, not literally have to be the only person bringing it you know,
yeah,
to my
yeah, it was
community.
tough. It was tough. And I guess I've always been very passionate about music. My folks were really always into music. There was always music going in our house. I played three instruments for a while. So music was important.
Yeah.
Uh, I played piano for years. I played flute for a couple of years, and I played guitar up until I was really in my 30s, and then I
Mhm.
just like I couldn't keep it up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that brings me to how I got into DJing.
Yes,
Um,
I was
part
wondering that.
part of this was all the travel. Part of what ruined me was going to the UK. Don't ever go to the UK if you love drum and bass, because it's over after that. And so I had the money to travel, so I was traveling. I was getting to Europe periodically, um, and I was
Okay,
about. Go ahead.
tell me about the first time you went to the UK and how you experienced drum and bass there. I have to know because I've never done it. And yeah.
I first went to the UK in 1991
Hmm.
as a young person, and I did not know really much about electronic music at that point.
Hmm.
And then I went in 2004, 5, 6. And I think I pretty much have been every single year up until like the last 2 or 3 years. I've gone every year. And a lot of times it was just searching out the shows, knowing the producers maybe through the chat room and Bass Drive, and then being that one really weird American girl that flew across the world to catch a show.
Hmm.
And, I loved the culture, I loved the vibe. And from a very early point, I wanted to bring that feeling of when you were in the UK listening to that vibe. I wanted to bring that. And that's really what I focused on doing, because that was the sound. It was different for American drum and bass at the time. Like there wasn't a whole lot of this like UK sound, soulful sound,
Hmm.
and that was what I was searching for, even back to
Hmm.
early Red Eyes and like early Alex Perez, early Lensman, early Nookie.
Hmm.
Um, and so I loved that culture. And after about doing shows for about a year, I realized I didn't know shit. And I did not want to be the dumb girl promoter. That
Right.
was like my worst fear, because here I was like a professional over here, like, you know, uh, giving design lectures and stuff to boards of directors and like presenting stuff like to a whole room full of people. And I was golden there. But when it came to the drum and bass side of things, I was still kind of just like a lone woman in
Hmm.
this, trying to make it happen, not understanding what this RCA does or what this does or how to connect these CDJs. And I was like, oh shit, I'm going to fail miserably. I need to learn how to DJ. so that I can just understand a bit more about this. I already love the music. How hard can it be? I understand. I understand what a beat is. I can count to 8. So I started to learn from, it's kind of, I never really talk about this, but one of the owners of Bass Drive taught me how to mix on vinyl. I went to the UK to catch a couple of shows, and I stayed with him for 2 weeks with the explicit idea that he was going to teach me how to mix vinyl.
Mhm.
And he kind of took me under his wing at the time. And he had like broken headphones and just had this one headphone ear, and he would just like give this ear to me on this wire and be like, okay, here's 2 records. It's the same tune. And we're just going to mix this tune to the same tune over and over and over again. And that's basically how it started. I think that was probably that was 2006, because it's been about 14 years. And yeah, the idea was that I would just start understanding that more, understanding the music, the breakdowns, the wiring up of the system.
Mhm.
And it was all just really by the seat of my pants. And then to really throw a wrench in things, just about a year after I had started learning how to DJ, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And then it was like, oh God, now it's going to be like every other instrument that I've dropped in my life, and that I've just not been able to keep up my music life. And it was kind of crushing, because I didn't want to give up, because I was starting to have fun, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
So, how okay, first of all, I have to say, um, as a DJ, as a person learning how to DJ, I wish someone had said to me, "Here's 2 of the same record." Freaking genius. Like, I mean,
yeah,
yeah. Um
really irritating after a while, but very effective.
Yes, yes. How, uh, like, how quickly did you pick it up? Like, what was your sort of, like, I'll just say it, your, like, level of frustration, like, "I don't know if I'm ever gonna get this." Like, did you ever have that kind of feeling or
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone can be learning how to beat match and not be frustrated, especially with certain entry points to tunes, and as I call it, no man's land, and certain drops where music just fades away and you're like, I don't know where the drop is, and
Yes.
um, I would say I had the benefit of a musical background, and with regard to that, I heard the music, and something I've always been able to do in my brain, like I could hear a jazz tune and I could pull apart the clarinet from the sax, from the piano. It's just something that I would like tweak out on in my head. I
Mhm,
could pull apart the pieces of it, and I do that with drum and bass, and that allowed me to understand the beat better. But I won't lie, it took a year or 2 or 3 or 4, even just to like get okay enough, But I played out nonetheless. I played
mhm,
out because sometimes I couldn't find people to open for Juice, or, like the learning to mix, it was a multi-pronged thing that I like had to do to be able to keep up my side of what I wanted to do in terms of producing the events.
mhm.
And I literally played my first party the day I found out I was pregnant, the day I found out. And I was mortified. Like, I thought everybody knew. It was called the white party. So everyone was dressed in white, and I was on the decks for the first time. I'd probably been mixing maybe 10 months, you
Mhm.
know? And I was like, you got to focus, Chemynne. You got to fucking focus, and I'm freaking out because I really did want to have a baby, and I was super excited.
Mhm.
But I was also conscious of not wanting to let this part of my life go.
Mhm.
And I didn't. So I kept mixing, I'll put a photo up on Facebook one of these days. But
Yeah.
there is a photo in my wall somewhere that shows me about 8 months pregnant on the decks, mixing, and like there got to be a point where I had to turn to the side because my belly was too big and it would hit the decks. And then eventually I just had to stop altogether. I remember leaving my first night because my kid would like kick. The subs would go up, you turn
Uh-huh.
up the music as the night goes on. And as we turned up the music, she would get really pissed off and she would just like be kicking and just be like, too loud, dude, too loud. You're done. You're absolutely done. So I had stopped right about at that point. And, um, but I continued. I continued playing. I continued mixing. I continued playing sets. I had a yoga ball when my baby was little, and I would bounce on the yoga ball to like a random movement set that was just like a nice
Yes.
groove. And when she just could not find her calm, I would put on drum and bass. And bass lines and babies,
It's a
yeah.
good combo.
It's a good combo. So I kept it up, even though it was just incredibly hard to do. And I learned basically to mix primarily under headphones because the whole time I was really learning to mix, I was a brand new mom. And so there was like no way I could be blasting the music with a
Right.
sleeping baby who was always, because I only had time to mix at night because I was working during the day.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's kind of like I started out on vinyl and then I picked up the two CDJs. They're still the same CDJs that I have now, the MK1000s, the MK3 1000s. And yeah, I pretty much just learned to play between the two. Back in the day, I had a lot more fun mixing between vinyl and CDJ.
Mhm.
Now I mix more on CDJs just because of the volume of music that I'm dealing with on a constant basis and
Right.
wanting to get things out and heard as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But I still buy tons of vinyl. I still
Okay.
buy it.
So let me ask, as a complete noob, I have only ever mixed on vinyl. You are still mixing on CDJs. Does that mean you're burning stuff to CD, or do they function as like a controller as well?
The 1000s do not. I mean, I've mixed plenty on the 2000s, which take the USB and time code, but I can't afford those. And the fact is, my 1000s work great. So I am still burning CDs, but I really am like, the we'll get to the whole thing that I never expected to be DJing like this. I am not
Yeah.
a DJ. I have never professed to be a DJ. And I never expected to be mixing 3, 4, 5 times a week. And
Mhm.
with the amount of music that I'm going through all the time, I
Yeah.
really need to shift to time code. So we've
Yeah.
basically been waiting to move back into our house so that we could kind of get settled again and I could make that shift
Mhm.
because ultimately it will be a lot easier than managing media, which I still
Yeah.
do.
Okay, so let's talk about someone asked a really good question and T-Bone answered it in the chat, but for people that aren't watching the chat, I want them to get the answer. So, baby daughter inside of you was not really feeling those vibrations at your loud events. How does your teenage daughter feel about drum and bass?
That's a great question. She digs it. I mean, she's never not liked it. She's never asked me to turn it down. And particularly doing live streams a lot more where we go late, and that means she's up late.
Mhm.
But as it turns out, she's kind of a night person, just like her mom. And you know, what's been interesting the last couple of years is she's really developed her own taste in music. And, she follows different bands and people that I don't know. I took her and her friend to a Claro concert about a year and a half ago. Y'all probably don't even know who Claro is, but
I don't.
um, She's like, kind of a new, cool, acoustic sounding. I'm trying to think of the kind of music she really likes. It's a little indie. It's a
Mhm.
little melodic. She loves things with ukulele. She loves
Nice.
like easy vocals, and she loves lo-fi, you know.
Mhm.
I always love lo-fi, but she loves her lo-fi, and she loves uh, like these kind of down tempo, chill mixes.
Mhm.
So she doesn't really listen to I mean, we listen to a lot of jazz at home too, but I'm often playing drum and bass.
Mhm.
Let's be frank, and it's very loud when we're streaming and stuff, or when we're recording a set. But she doesn't mind. She's always like, "No, Mom, don't worry about it. It's fine." Or I'll come downstairs and hang out with you, and I'll be like, "But it's gonna be really fucking loud." And she's like, "No, that's cool. I'm gonna put my headphones on, and like I'm just gonna be chilling with you." So
Mhm.
yeah, it's not her thing, and she's even told me that she probably won't be carrying on the family business. But I don't think I ever had that expectation of her anyway.
Yeah.
Though it might have been fun. I did try to teach her to mix when she was 4 or 5, and she did pick up a little bit of it. But maybe one day she'll come back to me and ask me again.
Yeah.
She'll realize her mom is cooler than she thinks.
So Clever Gal asked, oh, and by the way, let me just thank Clever Gal for the bits. You're amazing. Thank you, Subfugitive, for the follow. I love you guys.
Clever.
Um, yeah, Clever Gal asked, did you study instruments in school or have like classes or lessons, or were you mostly self-taught?
A combination. Piano was first. My mom sung opera. My mom was really into opera, and she spoke 3 different languages that allowed her, French, Spanish, and Italian, allowed her to sing her opera and do her art history research. So there was
Mhm.
kind of like that. And then dad was like into like rock and roll and like the Stones and Beatles and jazz. And so it was really important to them that we learned how to play piano
Mhm.
when we were kids. So we always had a piano, and I probably took piano lessons for 10, 12 or more years,
Mhm.
to the point where I played very intuitively for a while. And I really miss being able to do that because I cannot do that anymore.
Mhm.
Um, so I did take piano lessons, and I did take flute lessons for about a year. And then I played flute for a couple of years after that. Um, and then guitar was spontaneous. I play left-handed, which is really weird. So nobody can ever really teach you how to play guitar left-handed. So I had picked up a kind of cheap right-hand guitar, and I had it restrung to left hand, and that was self-taught, just between a couple of friends. And I had a couple of friends who would like face me, and we would like mirror each other, and we would do the the fretting.
Yeah.
And so that was, the guitar was self-taught, and I kept that up for 10 years. But again, I just didn't have time. I really spent the first part of my life working very hard, spending
Mhm.
my money on traveling. And I have 2 different design degrees, so I worked very hard to pay off my student loans.
Mhm.
And I didn't have my kid until I was almost 39.
Mhm.
So I I put family way, way at the end of,
Mhm.
I was really just really focused on a lot of other things. So
Yeah.
that's why it was remained so important to never give up DJing,
Mhm.
just out of principle.
Mhm.
And I never wanted to be a DJ. I just wanted to be able to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you are promoting a show, you're ultimately responsible for, does the equipment work? Is it set up properly? Does it sound right? And nothing will give you an understanding of that like actually being a DJ, actually using the
Yeah.
equipment.
And
I
back in the day, the
totally
club
get
didn't
that.
have CDJs anyway. So I had to buy my own and take them to the club. So it was kind of, and I brought my turntables to the club too, because like theirs were thrashed. So it was kind of like that kind of thing where it all just kept happening out of necessity.
Right. Right. So, Be Specific Guru asked a great question. Would you ever do a jazz stream? I
Don't
think
get
that
me
would be
started.
dope. I think that would be amazing.
I have definitely thought about it. I have a fair amount of jazz vinyl, and I am a huge, huge fan. I I listen to KMHD. We have a station up in Portland called KMHD. It's advertising free radio, all jazz 24/7. And they've been going for 36 years, community supported. I'm actually a member. That's right. I have that shit auto deducted $5 a month because $5 can go to jazz.
Mhm.
I would love to. I'm still thinking about doing another dark 80s alternative stream, but I know that really like tweaks out some of our audience. So, but possibly jazz. You probably noticed that almost every stream I start with some kind of soul, rare groove, jazz, or like kind of a down tempo is usually the very first tune I drop. And all of my podcasts are the same,
Mhm.
usually some kind of jazz or like Earth, Wind, and Fire, some kind of like old school stuff, and then I go into the drum and bass. So, yeah, I would do it. I would do it at
Yeah.
some point.
Well, Gouda D&B mentioned today, possibly doing like an influences set at some point. And I have to tell you, I thought that was such a great idea. Because, like,
My influences,
well, yeah, I
you
mean,
guys
like,
would freak out though.
but like, I'll tell you right now, uh, uh, so El Hornet from Pendulum, man, the guy does happy hardcore sets. He did a whole Eurobeat set once that was amazing. And uh, I think hopefully, like most of the people that are into jungle that I know, the older they've gotten, the more they've allowed their taste to branch out, or like
I
they're
think I
less
just
like,
have to be like bold enough.
yeah.
Obviously, I've honed in really closely as to what the juice sound is of sorts, or at least the
Mhm.
areas that it encompasses. And um, I guess I just have to have the balls to put myself out there.
Yeah.
It took the death of one of my favorite artists to spawn me doing that alternative 80s set.
Hmm.
But my fundamental music base is there's a lot of punk, a lot of ska, and a lot of like very dark, sad music from what I was listening to in the 80s, Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus, Dead Can Dance, Tones on Tail. Like there was a lot of it was a really sad time for me, I suppose, back in those days. So I listened
Hmm.
to music that represented that to me. That's what a lot of those
Hmm.
CDs and
Yeah.
stuff are too.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether that's stuff people really want to listen to, but I like what the West Dub said. It is nice to
Yes.
share.
Yes. And like, again, that is part of your journey to like where you're at now. And all of those things shaped you and, brought you to this place. And, you know, it, some of it will be unexpected for people,
Yeah.
Well, and you don't have to do it all in one night, like
Yeah, true. True.
you're doing it 5 nights a week. You've got an audience. So, if, I don't know, if people don't want to hang out one night,
Exactly. They
whatever.
don't have to. I mean,
Exactly.
uh,
Exactly.
Golden Child's a huge inspiration to me for that, though I could never dream of playing like he does and the breadth of knowledge and all that he encompasses in his music.
Hmm.
But I loved one thing that he said a while back was, when he kind of got into this, was that he just realized people still needed to hear the music, and
Mhm.
that he had to play it. If you don't play it, people will forget that it's there.
Mhm.
And I think that's so important
Yep.
and so relevant to keeping that flow. So
Yeah, and,
yeah.
like, people are still finding drum and bass for the first time
Every
right now,
time,
which is
every time.
fantastic,
Yeah,
and those people need to know where it came from. They need to know the history, not because we're gatekeepers, or at least I'm not, but
yeah,
because it enriches the experience of what you love to know, where it came from and to have that context to put it into.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
and if we don't do it, who's gonna? You know?
I mean, the truth of the matter is, drum and bass, for instance, drum and bass has saved my life. And like, I'm going to do a design about that at some point. Like,
Yes.
D&B does save, like, almost all the interactions I've had through having a night, through drum and bass, through the people I've met have been incredible.
Mhm.
I mean, it brought me my husband too. And,
Okay.
you know, have a lot of thanks goes to drum and bass for that.
Okay, so we're just gonna take a random right turn here, or yeah,
Okay.
I think we can call it a right turn safely. Because you hinted at me when we were doing our little, test deal of this last night. You hinted at me that you had a very interesting, or was it in your email? You hinted that you had an
Yeah.
interesting story and that drum and bass was kind of involved in that. I'm sure the chat would love to know how you guys met. So hit me. I want to hear it. And even if they don't want to know, they can go find somebody else to listen to.
Okay.
This is my show. Let's do it.
It's so so yeah, I was actually married for 15 years, a long time, to the daddy of my daughter. And after we divorced, which was like 2010 or 11 or something like that, I just kind of was really deep in my own groove. I was in my profession. I was getting the hang of being a mom. I had started up doing juice again because uh, I mentioned that over 15 years, I only paused twice. Once was when I had my baby, and once was when my mom passed away.
Mhm.
And uh, I was really in my zone. And
Mhm.
uh, I had kind of a big chat world on Base Drive, and I chat to a lot of people over in the UK, and started talking to this dude in Amsterdam. And uh, I mean, I thought he was a weirdo, just like me. I mean, I'll
Yes.
just I'll just say it. And but I just never made anything of it. I was so happy to be divorced that I didn't go into a relationship for several years, and I probably would have been content never being in another relationship again after that. But we continued to talk a lot, and what kept us talking was we had a community of people sort of around Europe who all played together and all hung out in the same D&B circle that we did. And so we always kind of kept finding each other at the same things. And I had flown out to the UK a few times for some of these gigs that our buddy Tommy was throwing. And people would come in from Greece and from Switzerland, and Dice would come over from Amsterdam, and we were just friends, and we would just like dance. And I was like, cool, okay, I'm flying back to the US. Nice one. See ya. um, and then one day, uh, he hit me up on, I don't even know if it was IRC. I don't even think we really Skyped at that point.
Mhm.
Um, and he was like, I got a bunch of vacation. What are you doing for Christmas? And I was absolutely like stunned, like almost taken aback, like, who are you?
Mhm.
We had probably been talking for a couple of years at least.
Mhm.
And
So wait, was he talking about coming to the US? And
indeed,
that's what made it like,
exactly. He was
because
like, well,
why come
we've
to Oregon?
exactly.
Yeah.
He was talking about going to Chicago, but then he was like, we talk practically every day.
Mhm.
And, I've got 11 or 12 days of vacation coming to me. Are you doing anything? And the crazy thing is I wasn't doing anything. It was literally the first time I was going to be away from my daughter. She was about 4.5, and she went with my ex to go visit her grandma in San Francisco. And she'd never been away from me ever at that point, not for 10 days.
Mhm.
But I was like, yeah, I love her grandma, and I actually call her mom. We're really close. My ex-husband's mom. And
Mhm.
I was like, sure, go. And
Mhm.
so I had just like committed to going, I'm gonna like do some self-care here. I'm gonna like mix and like take care of myself for 10 days or whatever. And then dude over here is like, hey, are you busy? And so I wasn't busy. And I was like, okay, sure. If you really want to come to Portland, Oregon and visit, okay, but no expectations.
Mhm.
I like
Mhm.
laid it all out, right? I
Right,
was
right.
like, I am not guaranteeing anything here, buddy. And, we had been flirting a little bit. So I was like, still really, on edge. And I was like, okay, well, what happens if you're just a tweaker and I just like can't deal with you? Like, can you just stay with me then? And we can just go back to being friends, and will it be fine? And,
Mhm.
and we were getting to be good friends. So we were just like, okay, let's just, no expectations,
Mhm.
just coming out for a visit, show me your city.
Mhm.
Um, so that was basically kind of how things launched. Literally, if he had not asked me what I was doing for Christmas that year, it might not have gone down like this. Um,
Well, T-Bone feels it's important, and I do too, to say he also was not promising anything. So this was, a mutual let's see what happens kind of
Very
deal.
much so. And I love that about him. I love that he is uh, like he never needed that. He's
Mhm.
so independent, and he's
Mhm.
so like in his own groove. And uh, you know, he didn't need me to be something that I wasn't. And that continues to be a wonderful thing in our relationship today.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he showed up at the airport.
Mhm.
I picked him up in PDX from the international arrivals, and in front of like God and everyone in the whole room of arrivals, he showed up and he gave me the most amazing kiss ever.
So much for no expectations.
And I was stunned.
Um,
I was
which were you
absolutely stunned.
Yeah, so which were you more stunned at? That A, he did it like just right there in the airport, right off the bat, or B, that it was totally amazing?
Both of those things. And I was just like, who the fuck are you that you think that you can just do that, And yes, he actually just could. And uh,
Also, he says, "She kissed me too, though." But of course she did, because it wouldn't be the most amazing kiss if, she wasn't kissing back. God,
yeah,
I'm so glad he's in the damn chat right now.
that's really funny. I'm not paying attention to the chat because it was too much.
Yeah, no, that's good.
But
That's my job.
basically that launched 4.5 years of going back and forth between Portland and Amsterdam. Uh, it was always like, let's just see how it goes. It was
Right.
literally always in the moment. We were
Yeah.
just always in the moment. We didn't talk about the future. We didn't talk about anything. We just were like, do you want to do this again?
Mm-hmm.
And we started coming up with this little more please thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just kept going. He did a lot of traveling too, because it was tough for me as a single mom running a gig and having time and ability to work for myself, pay my bills, run the shows, and then like leave, because I couldn't just leave my daughter like anytime.
Right.
And that had to be like very carefully handled with my ex-husband in terms of like leaving the country,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
not just for drum and bass, but hey, I'm going to visit this guy. And that was really challenging. And we basically managed to see each other several times a year. And uh, after a while, it got to be painful, you know. And I think it took me like a few years, but I was falling in love. And every time, you know, we had to part ways, you know, after like amazing 2 weeks of drum and bass. And, you know, at one point, Tommy, our buddy putting on these shows, booked us both to open for Nookie. And like he intentionally was like putting us together. Like we had some friends who were like in cahoots to get us together, you know, but it was working. And, you know, but finally we started to book our next flights and our next visits like on the last day or two before one of us had to leave, whether he had to
Right.
leave Portland or I was leaving Amsterdam, so that we would always have something to look forward to.
Right. Right.
And it was like at first we just kind of wung it and we're like, yeah, I can do this then. And but after a while, you know, I think we both really wanted to hold on to that. And so we went back and forth for 4.5 years. And then he started to look for work on this side of the world. And that kind of took us on a new journey, because we went from, you know, the next visit and the next visit to, I don't want to be apart from you anymore, you know. And this is 6,000 miles.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't like upstate New York or down in California. This is 6,000 miles. And it's not cheap to fly to Amsterdam, you know. And so he started, you know, he was like, look, I've been here all my life. You know, there's other things that I want to do. And I was like, really, really, really? And so he started looking for work and nearly landed a job in Vancouver. And then we realized the logistics of driving back and forth between Vancouver, BC and Portland, which is a 7-hour drive, and like the logistics of having a kid with that. And like, how often would we get to see each other? How much are we going to fly back and forth? And after like a year of that, he just started looking for work in Portland. And he found a job here right in his area of expertise, and which is basically video.
Okay.
And yeah, he moved here 3.5 years ago. And you know, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I still feel entirely blessed to spend my days with this guy. And it's pretty cool that we've kind of come full circle and are now like mixing together again, streaming together. It's not something we ever expected we would be doing. He's not a DJ. I'm not a DJ. Like you know, I dropped my DJ name because it's just like, I am not a DJ. I know.
Girl, I hate to break it to you. You guys are DJing 5 nights a week. You're a DJ, okay? Like just like take it on board.
I'm
Like
trying. It's a It's a new
There's
place for me.
it's you know you know as well as anybody in this world knows because of all the acts that you've booked, the friendships that you have developed, the relationships that you have developed. Being a DJ ain't nothing special. It's just a person who
Yeah.
mixes records.
Yeah.
Guess what? You are a person who mixes records. You're a DJ, okay? Get
It's
with it.
funny. As I've said, I always thought it was. I never used to book myself at my own shows, especially after I had my baby. I
Mhm.
always thought there was so much more talent. I would rather get in so many more people who were trying to develop their careers as a producer or as a DJ. But I have a different career. Well, I had this design business, which I recently retired 2 years ago to really admit that I was doing drum and bass full time. And, I talked to you about the agency stuff, but
Yeah.
I just always felt it was more important to focus on other people. And as I said to you before, it was really just about understanding the music, knowing what I was doing. And it's true, though, over the last 14 years, I've gotten to love it. And I was pretty rusty, other than doing podcasts like 3 times a year that are up on SoundCloud. I was not mixing 3 to 5 times a week until COVID.
Right.
Um,
Right. Do you have a SoundCloud link on juicedrumandbass.com? A link to
uh,
your SoundCloud?
I do.
And
It's
okay,
just soundcloud.com/juicedrumandbass. Same
good,
handle.
good. Okay, so I'm gonna put your web address up again for everyone. And guys, if you go to the bottom of her page, she has all the little icons for Instagram and blah blah blah, Twitter and like all of that stuff. So yeah.
I like Secret Structure's comment. That's funny.
Oh, what did he say?
He
You aren't
says,
DJs, you're
"We're
hat
hat
dealers.
dealers."
Bring that hat. I want to see that hat. Come on, get that hat out.
FYI, Secret Structures. So these are brand new, embroidered, and we're really excited because it's the first time I've done something
Show it
that
again. Don't take it away yet. Let them
that
see it.
that didn't have my logo or anything on there. It's only people who are in Twitch the last year would know what this is, and I wanted to do it just for fun. Um, and maybe what you guys don't know is that I have a degree in textile design. Before I was a graphic designer, I
Of
worked in the
course you do.
textile print design industry for like 8 years doing surfwear and skatewear. And I did some home furnishings. I did some apparel. So that's all like the prints that go on textiles.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that career, but I kind of just, when I went into graphic design and branding, I just was kind of like, I am evolving my design skills, and I didn't really go back to apparel much.
Mhm.
And so the cool thing about where things have changed and brought me now is I have a chance to like use all of my skills
Yes.
for the first time, maybe in my whole life, where
Yes.
I'm using my design work and my understanding of textiles and apparel and my love of the music and my love of building reputations of artists.
Hmm.
And I've really just, it's why I retired my design business
Hmm.
so that I could focus on this all the time. But I let my design business like retire after 21 years at it so that I could launch a little agency.
Okay,
And
before we
so,
get to that, just super
yeah.
quick. Um, Everybody wants a hat. So is there a link to your merch on the website as well?
Sure, it's just juicedrumandbass.com
Mhm.
slash merch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, people, put your money where your
Okay.
mouths are. Get
You can,
something. Get a lid for your dome with a juice box on it.
before I talk about bass roots, I want
Yeah.
to say a big shout out to Subfugitive.
Yes.
Maybe a lot of you folks don't know who he is, and he's in Virginia right now, but he has been a part of our juice crew for several years and used to run the front along with Ice Breaks, who I don't think is in here tonight. And they were really like my glue and my rock at the door, kind of running the craziness of the night, so that I wouldn't have to work the door. And after some years of doing this, it got a little bit too crazy trying to network and tend to the artists and the
Right.
sound and whatever. And so big shouts to Paul Subfugitive. And
Yeah.
I miss him a whole lot. And come back to Portland, my homie.
That's
So,
fantastic. It's so important, having known a lot of promoters, closely, the the trust that it takes to get someone running your door is massive.
especially
And
when you don't make any money, and
right,
you're like fucking winging every 20 bucks that comes into the door is going to the artist, and if not, it's coming out of my personal hide. And I just accepted that after a long time, but when I
right.
started to slow down my design work, I was like, shit, juice really has to run itself.
Mhm.
It really has to be sustainable.
Right.
Otherwise, I can't do this because I don't have the big bucks to throw at it anymore.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So having a trustworthy crew, and I've always appreciated that. We've always had a pretty small crew, and having that tightly knit group the night of the event has been clutch. And
Yeah.
sometimes help distributing posters and stuff like that too, because Portland's a big place when you try to canvas it by yourself with 250 posters. Like
Mhm.
it's real hard to come up with the time for that.
Mhm.
So I've been grateful to like split that with different people and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
and, so, like, just the event is one thing with all of the things that you have to do or make sure gets done, right? So having a
I,
crew is super important
I
for
don't
that.
think even people can begin to know how many hours I spend still
Yeah.
on the book. I mean, so I do all the correspondence with
Mhm.
everyone, all the bookings, planning, contracts, um, all the graphic design in multiple formats, in multiple sizes, and
Mhm.
different platform, for different platforms, and
Mhm.
all of the pushing of the brand. And then I've always done merch. I've been doing merch for 15 years, but it was kind of spotty. It's really the last 4 or 5 years that I've been doing it pretty consistently, a new design every year.
Mhm.
Um, so there's like that aspect. And then, you're managing the output of whether things are being silk screened right, or whether the embroidery is off kilter.
Mhm.
And then, of course, there's running the night itself. There's
Yeah.
managing all the social media. So I'm like on 5 different platforms, and then I would do the podcasts, and then, people would ask, well, why don't you mix? Well, I don't fucking have time to mix, dude. I don't have time. Like, I got to deliver these 200 posters. And like, I was always planning like 2 or 3 months in advance for my own
Mhm.
sanity, but also
Right.
because we book mostly international people for our headliners. So that requires just a lot of correspondence day and night. My day is their night. It reminds me a
Mhm.
lot of when Tyson and I were apart. I just
Yeah.
never slept
Yeah.
because I would want to stay up late so that he'd be waking up in the morning. But similarly, it's so that I can do business with people in Europe when they're waking up. Um, and so yeah, it's there's so much time and energy and effort that goes into this. And I think about 5 years ago, I started to realize that like I was just in this. I was just in it deeply, and I wasn't
Mhm.
ever going to let it go.
Mhm. Okay,
And
so, I'm sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead. I totally
nah,
interrupted you.
that's really what led me to starting to support artists and their visas and such, because I just got so freaking deep into this. Um, I didn't want it to just stop with shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Okay. So
wanted
yeah.
to do more.
Yeah. So let's talk about bass root.
So yeah, I had like a shoulder procedure and I had carpal tunnel surgery in my hand. And I was like, I really got to slow down this graphic design work because I've been pounding at the computer for 20 years, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I got to move to something that's more like correspondence based and just do the design work for Juice and like one or two other clients maybe. And um, this has all been happening really organically as this whole experience has the last 15 years. But um, one of the pivotal changes was I became friends with a lot of these DJs and producers over the years, right? And they come out and visit. We put them up for a couple of days. We hang out. I've made a lot of really wonderful and important connections that way. And in that way, I got a chance to get to know some of the people who really weren't getting help from US based agents and were really being overlooked. And, um, this would give me a chance to kind of find out, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to tour the US? What are your plans? And um, it was really wonderful having their support in the night. And um, I was starting to do little groups of bookings for people because they knew that like I knew the people all up and down the West Coast, or that, drum and bass nights in the US, we're all pretty linked. We
Right.
all try to stay in touch in many different ways because we need each other and we want to help each other to thrive. At least
Right.
I do. Whether you're in Atlanta or Denver, it doesn't matter. We're all trying to do the same thing. And so Cybergroove, important drum and bass agency here, offered me a job in 2018. They were like, I see what you're doing, and we mostly do heavier edge drum and bass, but there's so many great artists out there. We want you to open up a new liquid area of the business and be an agent for us.
Nice.
And that was kind of pivotal because here I was trying to like wind down my profession, and I was like, whoa, you mean you think I have some skill doing this? Like I please understand that like I'm just a mom and I just do this because of a deep love for the music. Like I don't do it for myself. And I mean I do in the way that it really nurtures that part of me, but like it's very organic for me. And when somebody offered me a job doing something that I really still was considering a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
like I was still like making excuses to my family for why I was going to lay down my design business of 21 years so that I could go into drum and bass full time. That was kind of crazy. And I was really stunned and really humbled that they wanted me to come work for them. And that was when I realized, well, if they want me to come work for them, that means I can do it by myself. And having been an entrepreneur for really most of my life, I only know how to create my own businesses, you know? And
Yeah.
I was like, why build their business when I can just build my own? And I took 2 months to think about it. And I was like, I second guessed myself a lot. And then I turned down the job and I launched Bass Roots. And I helped Command Strange and Red Eyes to get their North American visas, their US visas.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time. It took me about a year of, getting a visa. It's a very, very, very complicated process. And artists need so much help putting their portfolios together and assembling their music and so many documents and things. And like, I'm good at this. This is like what I like. I thrive in that kind of atmosphere of promotion and helping other people to look good, you know?
Well, and
And
you'd been doing it for 13 years.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, as a profession in graphic design too, like branding people
Mm-hmm.
was something that I knew how to do. So it was like doing this in kind of a new way. And they both, I had known them both for quite some time. And I always thought, for instance, Red Eyes was way underrepresented. This was like before he was on the North Quarter. And, you know, he kind of slowed down for a bit too, because he has a family. And, you know, both he and Alex Command Strange were like, well, Alex was like pounding at it. He's like, I really want to come to the US. I really want to come to the US, but nobody's going to give me a visa because I'm from Russia. You know, he's actually from Kazakhstan, but living in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay, man, I'll help you. You know, let's do this. I'm going to launch my business, and you guys are going to be my first two clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally jumped off a very steep cliff with not a lot of cash, and I used some of my own cash to help them pay for their visas, because not every artist has the money to do that. And usually they go to a bigger agency who will say, yeah, we'll cover the cost of your visa and you pay us back from your tour earnings. But, you know, I'm not a big agency. I'm just some chick. And, you know, it was like, okay, well, now I gotta like convince my husband that it's okay for me to like, is it okay for me to spend thousands of dollars on a whim and help these guys get their visas?
Mm-hmm.
And as always, he's been incredibly supportive and understanding of like my passion for the work. And we spent, yeah, about 8 to 12 months. And I got both Red Eyes and Command Strange's visas. Command Strange was very hard to get. There was a lot of hoops to go through, and they initially denied him entry into the US. Even though his visa was approved, they still denied him entry. So I learned a lot over the last couple of years, and I put them on their first North American tours in US and Canada. I just never talk about that too much.
Okay, so me being someone who's only traveled internationally once and has no clue about visas, when you say they denied him entry, are you talking about like he got to customs and they said, nah, buddy, we're not letting you in, even though he had a visa, or this happened before?
Both things happened before. When he got his visa approved and he just had to get the stamp in St. Petersburg. So we had gotten him all the papers, and, you know, I work with a lawyer here who helps with all of this specific to that. You cannot do it without a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so he got to get his stamp in St. Petersburg, and they were like, nope, you can't have your stamp. And he literally, I was in fucking Croatia at the end in September of 2019, going to Outlook for the first time. I went to Outlook to meet Red Eyes because it was going to be the first time we were going to meet in person. And I got the news that Alex's visa had been denied. And so we like ran around, got all crazy, and finally he got another appointment in Finland and got his stamp in Finland 2 months later, just in time for him to come to the US by October. It was literally like 9 days before he was like, I had a whole tour. Like,
Wow.
this was so nerve-wracking because I was literally booking these tours while we were in Amsterdam with Dice's family, and I left my daughter with him and his family, and I went off to Croatia for 5 days to go to Outlook Festival. I've never done anything like that before either, you know, but I was like, God damn it, I'm going to go meet these artists. These are like my clients now, and like I want to go meet all these other people who could potentially be clients in the future, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So it was
Well,
really
big
tenuous.
big up Finland, big up the, US State Department in Finland for,
For reals.
I mean,
For reals.
saving the tour.
For reals. And then to finish your question about that, when Alex Command Strange flew into LA, I learned never fly your international traveler into LA first. Forget LA customs. They
Okay.
held him in customs for 6 hours, almost to the point where he missed his opening gig in the States, because they would tell him nothing. They were just like, you go sit over there, man. You're like a Russian dude. We don't have time for you. And then after 6 hours, they just stamped him and let him go. And all the time I was just like sweating like crazy, just going, oh my God, like, oh my God, this is not going to work out. And I'm going to fail on these international tours. And these
And
guys
it's
have
my
come so
first time.
right. And these guys have come so far and they've spent so much money. And, you know, so anyway, it worked out. I was able to bring them both on tour several times. We were coming up on our fourth tour out here, you know, because you kind of want to bring them 3 times a year. Immigrations wants to see them coming 3 times a year.
Okay.
And I got them all in for 3 times, and then COVID hit. So that part is really sucky because their visas are now running out, as are many, and those will not be replaced. That time will not be given back by the US Department. They will not give them that time back on the visas. So yeah, so I had spent like several years reinventing myself to like get into this agency mode. And yeah, we had a really big year planned last year. We had Bookham coming out with DRS. We had Doc Scott. We had KJ Salka. We had like so many shows that we canceled. And I had 3 tours booked for Red Eyes and Command Strange.
Yum.
And I was about to have BC coming in. So all of these things got just completely headed off at the pass. So the agency, it's in limbo, but I continue to stay really active and really informed on policy, and well, you know, we'll see where it goes. I'm just grateful that I didn't have to quit doing the night, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
for like a
Well,
month after COVID lockdown. Like I was mortified for like a month. I was like, well, I have like $4,000 out in deposits for people.
mhm.
You know, I've got money tied up in visas, and we're locked down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, if we don't get to meet before then, when you finally get BC to Portland, I am there for sure.
I
'Cause
appreciate
yeah.
that. It's hard to say who will be willing to do what now after our
Yeah.
current after our administration, and after all the travel bans. And you know, I don't think any of us are looking at doing any in-person gigs before the end of the year or beginning of
Right.
next.
Right.
Um,
Right.
the
Right.
venue that we were at has finally closed down after holding on for like a year. Um, but you know, I keep my foot on the path pretty steadily, so I can kind of hear who's doing what. Still, I'm not gonna throw a show until things are absolutely chill, because you know, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be that first person that, you know, didn't do things correctly and a bunch of people got sick. So
Right. Right.
um, you
Okay,
know,
so I can't believe this, but we only have 20 minutes left.
yeah.
So I want to hear how then you went from holy shit, my year just went completely into the toilet to we're going to Twitch.
Well, I have my trusty husband to really thank for some of that. He's been on Twitch for years, just because streaming and video and that engineering is his line of work. and professionally. And I would say, I did not really have a good understanding. But it was kind of coming at a time where I've been really fed up with Facebook and like promoting on some social media, just like really fed up with how that really wasn't helping me or my business, to be totally honest. So things got locked down. I sat down and for 3 days I designed the Portland Junglist art that now has been on a lot of our merch. And I just kind of like went into a zone and spent about a month going, okay, what do I do? What do I do? I don't want to let this go. Like, juice drum and bass means everything to me. It's like my other kid. It's older than my kid even. And I've just put too much effort for too long to let it go. And so we saw some people were doing some streams. I also was watching some Facebook streams and was like, this is lame. Facebook drops the stream all the time. It's just not user friendly. And T-Bone Tice was like, yeah, let's get on Twitch. Let's see how it goes. And so it was just literally that. We started just doing some kind of just us streams, and we had like 8 listeners, 12 listeners, and I spent time pulling followers out of Facebook and Instagram into Twitch. I was literally like hitting up everybody going, yo, we did not stop. We are on Twitch. So we took off March, which was my 15th anniversary. I had Big Bud booked for our 15th anniversary. For the only one-off in the United States, I was flying him out. And mind you, he was one of our first artists that played Juice back in the day. So I hadn't even seen him in years and years, and he was going to do this special thing for us. So we literally had to just cancel our 15th anniversary. And from there, it's just been a journey, to be totally honest. Just staying consistent with the last Friday of the month, which is what we've been doing for a number of years. And I just continued to hit up artists and say, look, we're not going to give up. Do you want to play for one of our streams? And found that a lot of artists were not set up for it. I mean, let's face it, some of these guys and gals were playing out 4 or 5 times a week. They didn't need their own CDJs at home. They're producers.
Right.
They're producing on their computer, and they're mixing when they go out. So a lot of people still are not set up to do video recording, either live or pre-recorded. So, it took a few months. We got on Twitch late March, early April, and was kind of winging it. I'm about to do the session with Alibi coming up in February with Alibi, Ms. Isis, and Jay Holder is our 10th feature live stream. But I think we've streamed for about close to 200 hours since then. And at first we just started like once every couple of weeks and kept doing the monthly. And then we were like, no, we started to meet community. We started to meet you. We met Man Like Deeps. Then like my next door neighbor, who's an avid junglist, who used to come out to Juice shows, introduced us to Jamie Darnell, who introduced us to Beers and Beats. And that was so perfect. Literally one day, Gabriel was like, you really should go listen to Jamie Darnell. He's come to a few of your Juice sessions. He's going to go spin some records with this guy on Beers and Beats PDX. And I was like, oh my God, there's like all these freaking other awesome local Portlanders and stuff who we didn't know when we were doing live shows. And that's kind of what the beauty of Twitch has been the last 10 months or so, has been not only building our audience in a new way, but helping us to kind of even reach people who are right here in our own city,
Yeah.
and or like, like Deeps up in Vancouver, and Beers and Beats turned me on to Man Like Deep, and that was over because
Oh
I
God, yeah.
freaking love Man Like Deep. Shout out.
Yes.
And I realized that we were all kind of trying to do the same thing. And then a few months ago, I was like, "Hey, let's get on that team drum and bass thing because that's what I do, man."
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that was super helpful getting on there, and then starting to kind of getting on some raid trains,
Mhm.
and we've been so appreciative for the support and the love, and you know having people understand that I am sure I'm a bedroom DJ, but like I've been working so hard at this night for so long, and that we're literally the hub for international travelers to come now to Portland is through Juice.
Mhm.
And I don't want that to end. So I'm really stoked that like Marky came through, and Effects 909,
Yeah.
and we had
Yeah.
Mukiare from Mexico, and we had Zero T and MC Fava. We've had MC Fava out here in person. Um, so we've had some really great results, and
Mhm.
literally that's how it kind of got started. It's been very organically evolving. And like I've said to you guys, I am seriously humbled every time I walk up to the decks, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
every time,
Yes, I know.
every time I walk up and I play, I feel like I'm bearing a little bit of my soul.
Mhm.
And because I am not a DJ, because I've never considered myself a DJ, it's still nerve wracking. And,
Mhm.
you know, it's taken me 10 months of constant DJing to like break my mic fear. Like, I never got on a mic ever, except for at the end of our show. Every show, we would do a group shot, and I'd get on the mic and I'd be like, "Hey, come out next month, blah, 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 blah," because I never miss a spot for marketing, right?
Right.
Like, come out, but I would never get on the mic otherwise. So to like make sure I'm DJing fairly smoothly, because I don't want to like not be professional at my own professional night,
Right.
to manage the mic, to watch the chat, to watch when raids come in, all of these things so
Yes.
far out of my comfort zone.
Mhm.
Like this past year has been about me being as far out of my comfort zone as possible. And I'm sure that's been the case for many people during COVID. Um,
Yes.
one of those things was building the website, because I don't build websites and I don't have the time, but I pushed and pushed with Tice's help. And it took about 6 months, but that thing finally went live on Christmas.
Mhm.
And just getting on a mic, DJing in front of people all the time, so far out of my comfort zone. Like,
Mhm.
you know, this
But
isn't at all where I expected to be when I was 51. This is the last place in the world that I could have imagined being. My place tends to be behind the scenes, behind the computer,
Mhm.
behind the graphic design. And that's why nobody knows who I am, because I never put a face to my name. And as one of the few women in the US doing this for so long, you know, I'm kind of starting to like embrace that a bit,
Mhm.
because like I said, it's taken like a ton of like beating down doors. I mean, there are a lot of agents and people who just wouldn't even ever return my phone calls. And I'd be like, "I have money. I want to book your artist." And they'd just be like, "Portland? Fuck you, fuck you, little people." Because, our night would only have like
Wild.
150 people out, 100
Mhm.
people out. We had not quite 200 out for Bookham in late 2018. So,
Wow.
we're a small city with a small group of listeners, and it's wonderful that I've been able to grow that a bit now in Twitch, and
Mhm.
it is wonderful to feel safe enough to like say, yeah, I'm the girl behind it. You know,
Yes.
it's not
Yes.
like yo dude. Everybody is always like yo dude, yo homie, like tell me if can you and your guys like get back to me. No, I'm the person who's going to be getting back to you, home skillet. You know, like
Yes.
so this last year it's been a real journey for me to let go of those inhibitions,
Mhm.
embrace the fact that I do this and that
Yes.
people need to see that. And
Yes.
that's why I dropped my DJ name, Mulch Factor, because Mulch Design is my design business that I retired. It's my life that it's not relevant to now. And
Mhm.
it's like they'll learn to pronounce Chemynne or they won't. And that's
Right.
fine. But now
Right.
I'm not going to find another DJ name that's more original than my own name. So I was like,
Right.
fuck it. I'm the Juice host now. I am the face of Juice.
Yes.
So
Well,
I'm being bold with it, you know. Many
yes.
thanks to my husband who mixes with me every week. I mean, he's a remarkable DJ in his own right, even though I know he's not a DJ. And we just
Okay,
have so
well,
much fun together.
that is the next step, okay? Like how first of all, just super quick because we are almost out of time. I can't believe it. How awesome is life outside the comfort zone? Because girl, I I too 2020 has brought me so far out, but it has been so amazing to
Yeah, no,
be,
I agree. And, you know, it took just kind of just kind of letting go.
Mhm.
And, you know, a lot of times doing these things has been just believe that you can do it. And,
Yes.
you know, like when the first visa came through and I was like guaranteeing this will come through, but I really didn't know if it would come through. Like,
Yeah.
just like believe in yourself. And a lot of these years for Juice have been all about just believing that I could do it, and just uh, like I said to you in a
Yeah.
different conversation, I'm the girl that just wouldn't go away. Like
Yes.
I'm in your fucking email box again.
And I'm gonna keep being in it.
And I'm going to
Yes.
keep being in it until you get back to me, like Alex Perez's agent. You know, it's just like, no, you can't blow me off anymore. You're missing out on an opportunity and a booking for your artist
Yeah.
at a good price. And there's going to get to be a point where you're going to find out your artist won't get to this city unless they
Mhm.
come through Juice.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm the girl that won't go away. So,
Well, I'm so glad you guys I'm so glad you found Twitch. I'm so glad that your husband, the wonderful Thies, put you, it pointed you in that direction.
me too. And he
Just
manages all the technical stuff on the streams too. And I could not do it without him. I seriously couldn't take on another thing. And
yeah.
he's so good at it. And I've learned so much, you know.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. I'm just thank you so much for being here. I have really, really enjoyed this
You
time.
too.
I know our viewers have too. They're amazing. Um, just, keep doing what you're doing. I just love it. Um, but real quick before we end, I want to say that next week, Scam Circuit
Oh,
uh, is
cool.
going to be here. I'm super stoked about that.
That's
Um,
awesome.
he's going to be a great guest. Um, and then who else is coming up? Who was the next one that I booked? I have some dates in between, but Gouda is going to be doing my stream on the 9th of March.
I love Gouda.
Me too. He is like a ray of sunshine, man. Like just vibes, vibes, vibes. Um, and on the 6th of March, my good buddy, the West Dub, is going to come back. That's a Saturday, and it's early in the morning, but I think it's going to be worth it, y'all. Um, he and I are going to do a Teach the Boomer the Genres episode.
That
And we're gonna
sounds fun.
oh god, yeah, we're gonna make it super interactive, like, um, basically, I think he's gonna have me, like, try and pick from multiple choice what genre this particular tune is from. I'm gonna get a poll from the audience to see if the audience agrees, and then we'll talk about that genre and then move on. That's what we think we're gonna do at this point
That sounds
anyway.
super fun.
So, yeah, I think it is going to be an absolute blast. Um, but I know that, Twitch is gonna bun us down. We're gonna get muted on stuff. So,
It
uh,
happens,
but
you know.
that'll push me toward finally getting the podcast together
Yeah.
and getting my YouTube page together. So,
Yeah, that's been kind of the focus too, like trying to get, we grab our sets right away for the features at least, and we put them up on YouTube. And there's still
yep,
sometimes muting issues there, but not
right,
not
right.
as deep. So
Yeah,
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 that's the other ticket.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I
So, yeah,
appreciate you so much too, and I really
yeah,
appreciate the opportunity, and like I appreciate everyone so very much for all the support. It literally has been my glue, and it literally has kind of held me together this past year,
yep,
and really made me feel like I had hope and still growth
yes,
in this area. So
yes,
thanks
yes,
to everyone
yeah.
so much.
Well, and
And
this is such an amazing environment to step out of your comfort zone because
yeah,
the environment is so supportive and everyone comes wanting to have a good time, wanting to enjoy themselves.
yeah,
And that's the energy that they bring. And so, okay, technical stuff happened. No big deal. A bad mix happened. No big deal.
yeah,
You had to start late because some weird shit happened. No
yeah.
big deal. Like it's
It's what
such a
it
safe
is.
space to do that. And you guys are all amazing. You all make that happen. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
it's
fantastic.
humbling. I'm glad that people
Mhm.
are kind of open-minded and understand
Yeah,
that this was not where I expected to be, but
yeah,
that I will do anything to kind of keep the music alive, you know.
yes,
It's really
yes,
all about the music, right? So
yes,
hopefully we can play a
yeah,
little for you tonight because we would
yeah.
will be normally, I think Dice has
Yeah,
just
guys,
gone live.
we're gonna raid into Juice. Thice is starting the show off
Yep.
and then
And then I'll step up for a little
yep,
bit,
yeah.
play you some deep
So
soulful drum and bass.
absolutely that's how you do it. And boy, what a big audience we have for it here, right? You're not having to get people to come to Bend anymore. People are
No, it's
coming to
different.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've
Yeah.
been in Portland doing shows for 10 years now, but
Yeah.
we're still a small city. It's still hard to
Yeah.
get people out. It's still hard to
Yeah.
get people out for a live stream. So,
Right.
you
Right.
know, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of convincing and letting people know that this is the way. This is the way to
Yeah.
do it, and we're here to support you as the artists and the
Mhm.
musicians. Like,
Mhm.
use our vehicle so we can all
Yes.
just keep it going, you know?
Help me help you.
It sounds
Uh,
dumb, but it's the total truth of the matter though.
yeah.
Like without
Yeah.
all of you, like we need each other, and that's
Yes.
why I'm trying to subscribe to as many streams as I can, and we try to raid somewhere different every time. You know, we want to share, and we want everybody to feel the love and to start streaming
Yeah.
now. No reason to
Yes.
wait, you know?
None. Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna bring up my graphics. Chemynne, I'm gonna take you out. I love you. Thank you for being here.
Awesome.
We're
Thank you
gonna
so
see you in
much.
just a minute.
Yeah, we'll see you on the stream. See you in a few
Okay.
minutes. Curly,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. Guys, how awesome was that? Y'all are freaking amazing. I just love you to death. I'm so glad you're here. Uh,